Logitech and Apple have some really cool keyboard cases for the iPads that add great typing performance as well as a trackpad to your iPad setup. But Logitech just came out with this really interesting keyboard case called the FlipFolio that actually has a magnetically detachable Bluetooth keyboard on it. So this is cool because you can remove the keyboard and then you just flip the keyboard case down like this, and it actually has this little built-in stand on it. So what's interesting about this setup is the keyboard is completely detachable and it uses Bluetooth. So you can set your iPad up wherever you want and still be typing on it. It offers many of Logitech's great features, like they have the easy switch buttons, so you can actually pair it with up to 3 different devices at the same time. What's interesting about this case is it actually is just magnetically detachable, and you can set your iPad up vertically if you want to have that different setup instead, and you can always put a phone on the side of this as well. So with all of Logitech's great technology, it's also very easy to pair this to multiple devices. So if you want to type on your phone, you can assign one of these extra easy switch buttons to be on a different device as well. And it's very easy to change from one to the next just by pressing the easy switch button for just a second. If you want to activate Bluetooth pairing mode, you just choose the button that you want, press it and hold it. The light will start to flash and show you that it's now in pairing mode. You also have a full function row on the top, so you've got screen brightness, search. You can also activate mission control, take a screenshot, activate emojis, and there's also a play and pause button and volume control on it as well. This one's designed for the iPad Pro M4 and the iPad Air M2 or M3. You can get this either in an 11 or 13-inch model. I also found it worked just fine with the iPad A16 for me, although I did find the magnets to not hold the A16 quite as well as they do the iPad Pro or the iPad Air. This has pretty good typing performance though, even though this is such a slim keyboard. It actually uses 4 coin-sized batteries, and this will give you up to 2 years of battery life on it. And there's also an off-on switch on the top of it as well to help you conserve battery life. Let's do a quick typing test. So it's a pretty quiet keyboard and you have pretty minimal key travel. I also found it has this textured feel to the keys, but it's not a super tactile feel if you compare it to something like the MX Keys Mini, or a mechanical keyboard is definitely going to feel way different from this. Also, since this one's the 11-inch size, the keys do feel pretty tight, but I feel like Logitech did a good job at taking most of the size out of the keys around the edges, like your shift and return keys are a little bit smaller, as well as your command, control, and the globe key are also quite a bit smaller than the ones on the Apple Magic Keyboard. I did find this is kind of an interesting setup to get used to because I'm used to having the Magic Keyboard, or also to having the combo touch that both have the trackpad for your thumb to use, which is just a very easy setup to use to type and to control the pointer with your thumb. So I found it was a little bit of a learning curve to get used to typing and then interacting with the iPad with your hand. But where this really shines is you can very easily fold it up, and now you're just using your iPad like it's an iPad. So I think this is kind of an interesting setup because unlike some of their other bulkier cases, this feels a lot more like an iPad native case where you can easily interact with the iPad without having the keyboard. Or if you want to put the keyboard on it, you can also always just magnetically attach it to the bottom of it and then fold it up on the back of it, and then your keyboard case is just tucked out of the way and it's very easy to use. This does definitely give it some more thickness and some heft, but it's very easy to close the folio, and I found that the keyboard holds on pretty well, so the magnets are pretty tight on it. And if you don't want to use the keyboard, you can always just take it off and use this as a standalone iPad with a little bit of protection. That being said, the flip design of this definitely takes some getting used to. I still find myself wanting to set this up backwards because you fold it back and then you fold it on the middle of the hinge like that. That way your camera's on top. If you want, you can also technically use it like this. This doesn't feel quite as stable though because this colored piece on it actually helps hold the iPad whenever you're standing it up like this. So it's definitely better if you can have the camera pointing up on it. This case really relies heavily on a lot of magnets to hold everything in place. This hinge point does feel pretty strong, but it also feels kind of like a cheap quality. You can kind of see the seam right there. So I think they could have definitely stepped it up a little bit with the design of this just to make it look a little bit nicer. I also do not think this is really a case designed to protect your iPad because it doesn't wrap around all the way like the combo touch does, but this is very similar to the Magic Keyboard in that regard. But it's cool that they were able to make this work with multiple different iPad models and to give you that flexibility depending on the iPad that you own. Depending on your preferences, you can get the Logitech Flip Folio in graphite, midnight, lilac, or pale gray, and this comes in either the 11-inch or 13-inch size depending on the iPad that you have. To me, the biggest issue with this case is it costs $160, which I don't feel like is worth it for what you get. I love that you can remove the keyboard, use it however you want. It's very easy to stow out of the way, and it's kind of neat to actually be able to use this on a desktop setup to position the iPad wherever you want and to still have the keyboard. I just think you're probably going to want to pair this with a mouse, and this keyboard is not one of Logitech's best ones. You can get the MX Keys Mini for $100, and that gives you way better typing performance. although it's not going to be as stowable as this. And there's a couple other keyboards out there as well that are pretty slim and minimal that you can get for a much cheaper price. They're just not going to magnetically attach to a case. I also like the stand on it. I think it's cool, but it does feel like a lower quality than what Logitech is known for putting out. So I think they should have definitely stepped this up in terms of just how durable it feels. I think it'll last, but I don't think that the finish on this is going to last because of how that seam looks, especially when you just have to bend it with so much force. I also think this takes a little bit of getting used to the way that you have to set it up. It's just so counterintuitive whenever you compare it to the iPad Magic Keyboard that you're able to very quickly deploy with the built-in cantilever design. Or here's the combo touch. This one's also very fast to set up. You just pull the kickstand out. This one's different though. You have to use the keyboard attached to it, but if you want to use it just as an iPad, you can always remove the keyboard and still use this as an iPad. So I like the combo touch better than the new FlipFolio. I just think this one is a little bit better and more enjoyable to use, and I also love having the trackpad on it. But with the FlipFolio, you're really just paying to get this magnetically stowable keyboard, which is still a really cool feature. I'm just not sure if it's the design that I actually prefer when it comes to a keyboard case with the iPad. This is really going to change your setup depending on the way that you want to interact with your iPad. I think this is really for you if you mostly use your iPad just as an iPad without a keyboard, because it does a great job at allowing you to open it up, to hold the iPad, and to have the keyboard at the ready if you do have a need to type for a longer period of time. It's not going to work on your lap though, so this is not going to be good for using on the couch with the keyboard, unless you have a different side table or coffee table that you can set the iPad up on and then put the keyboard on your lap. But then you're going to find yourself wanting to have a mouse. You're going to need to carry a mouse separate from this. So to me, the FlipFolio seems like a really cool idea, a little bit of a flawed design, but it might be fine for you depending on the way that you use your iPad. So you really need to consider, how do you want to use a keyboard case with your iPad? Because if you find yourself always wishing your keyboard was detachable and you could use it separately, put your iPad over on a different corner of the room and type on it, then this is going to be a good option because the keyboard is so easy to stow away on the bottom. But if you find yourself wanting to mostly use your iPad on a couch, or if you really like the trackpad and being able to go back and forth from typing, using the trackpad with your thumb and then interacting with the screen with your hand, that's when you're going to prefer a case like the Apple Magic Keyboard or the Logitech Combo Touch instead. And to me, I just think those cases are a better option for the iPad. I think if you want to use your iPad on a desktop setup, you're probably better off to buy a different keyboard instead and to get a better stand for your iPad to use it on a desktop. But I still think the FlipFolio is a cool design. They definitely had good intentions when making it. I just think there's a couple issues with it that make it not my favorite choice for the iPad, but I could totally see where this would be a good option for some users. So if you're interested in buying the FlipFolio, I do have links to buy in the description below. If you got any questions about this, or if you disagree with me, leave a comment down below. I'd love to hear them. Like this video, subscribe to the channel so you don't miss out on any upcoming content.